Concentrate in my own particular area, because the lack of public transport in the northwest means that more people are forced to use their cars. So I'm going to, like, at the moment, the recent, I suppose, numbers given to me was that there's 1,209 people waiting for a driving test in Sligo, 2,317 in Donegal and 513 in Leitrim, which is a total of 4,039 in the entire northwest, and we've 9 testers. 5 in Donegal, but there's none in South Donegal, which is a big concern. 3 in Sligo and 1 in Leitrim. So there's 9 testers to deal with the backlog of 4,039, which means that 449 candidates to each tester. So I suppose I'm wondering, you know, how many tests are you expecting testers to do per day? And I know we spoke about this came up about that there is that people are now employed permanently on permanent contracts. Is overtime being taken into that, or how is that factored? Is it 7 days a week? If the times are going to come down, is it going to be, our instructors going to be looking at doing, our testers going to be doing 22 tests per week? And I know that there's going to be an increase. There is plans in September, just as from your own action plan, to increase the testers in Sligo, which is really welcome. But if there was an additional person in Leitrim, would really help this, and they could maybe be deployed once the waiting lists have come down. So I suppose that's my first questions would be, how many tests do you expect testers to do per day? And would there be a possibility of employing an extra person in Leitrim?
Okay, so first of all, in relation to Donegal, Donegal has now moved to 15 weeks, so significant development in Donegal. As I referenced a moment ago, the location that we have on this piece of paper is where that tester's base is. But we move them, so we move them around the country. So if we take Clifton as an example in Galway, Clifton as an example is, we don't have a tester headquarter there because we don't need a tester there all the time. We move them out from Galway as and when is required. The number of tests that an individual does in a normal given day is anywhere between 7 to 8. Okay? With the advent of overtime, I referenced earlier that we are doing tests from 7:25 in the morning right up to 7 p.m, where that allows. Testers are working Saturdays, and they are also working the bank holidays. Testing on a Sunday actually doesn't give us a net gain because I still have to give people a day off within the week. And they are working a lot of long hours at the moment, and we have to be cognizant of that they are working very long hours. They're putting their shoulder to the wheel at the time when we need them to do so. What I can say is, as we are working through this plan, we will be moving testers around the country to ensure that we get all the test centres down to the level of the SLA. So for example, if I take, I'm going to give an example, Charlestown and Finglas as the moment. So Charlestown and Finglas I think is at around 12 weeks. We have a new group of testers in there. That was up at 36 weeks. So a huge amount of work has gone in there. Once we get that down to 10, we will give the opportunity, to support people maybe going to different test centres to work on those test centres for a while. So we move people around where the need is, and that's the big part of this plan. And that our teams are working with us. They are going to where they need. We look at the plan, we see the number of tests that are required, maybe to get a particular area down to the SLA or to improve it. We send people there for a couple of weeks. So that's how we're doing it.
Okay, so we'll hope, which is great to hear, we hope they will come down. Secondly, and this has come up also as well, and this is from talking to a number of young people, but also to a lot of driving instructors, that, and there is a lot of frustration amongst young people that they have to wait 6 months after they receive their learner permit. And I suppose they've done their 12, their 12 mandatory lessons, they've spent a lot of money doing it, and often, and the instructors would say this as well, that often that they're coming back looking for, when they have to wait 6 months and then to come back to do additional testing. So would it be an idea that, what is the logic, I suppose, of having to wait the 6 months? And I don't think it's going to affect the safety on the roads, but would it be an idea to trust the instructors that are actually working with them, that they can certify people's readiness for the test?
Okay, so there's a couple of things there. So the first one is, the instructors are responsible for delivering the 12 EDT, but the learning to drive curriculum is that you drive for 48 hours. So 36 hours should be done by a sponsored driver. Now that can be the ADIs, or it can be your mom and dad, or somebody who has a full licence. And the 6 months for us is about when you have gone through the EDT process, that you now have time to practice before you take the driving test. We have a 1 in 2 pretty much fail rate, and that's not good enough. We need to work on how we are going to increase that. So the people who are coming through that process, 1 and 2 are failing. Now it is slightly up, as I referenced a moment ago. I think about 53% for last month, which is great, because it now shows that in a twisted way that the waiting time is that when you get your test, you're passionate for it and you've taken, maybe you've done enough practice, but it's about giving the individual that practice time, that maturity on the road, that they can take the test under pressure. Because driving with a sponsor, driving with your instructor is going to will be, look, I done my test, I remember taking my test. It's a worrying time. So it's about building up the confidence. It's about building up those practice hours, which are, significant compared to the number of EDT that the instructor provides.
I think the problem was when they applied for the test that the waiting time was so long.
Yeah,
if the waiting
you're
times
right.
have come down, and if that's
Yeah.
coming down, that'll make more sense. But people were doing it was too long. It was taking too long.
agree.
It just would make sense that it wouldn't have to wait 6 months.
And definitely, look, we all have family members,
I know,
in
and
the
it's
RSA.
very frustrating, I suppose,
It
particularly in a rural area like mine. And this is the last thing, it's about the waiting times, and I suppose the times that we're getting from the NCT press office. So it was claimed that, and I know you said this in your opening statement as well, that there was going to be 14 days for waiting time for do your NCT. But I saw, I just tried it myself, so I tried on the NCT website on Sunday, looking for a test in Sligo and Ballina. Sligo, the next available date, or Ballina, was the 19th of August, which is 72 days, and in Carrick-on-Shannon was 87 days. So that's a far cry
It
from
is,
14
absolutely.
days.
So on several times we spoke to this committee about how the booking system works. So first of all, the slots are continuously updated. I'm going to be very honest with you, on a Sunday, nobody was working Saturday, nobody was working Sunday to put the slots into the service. So you're going to people who log in a Friday evening, they will consume those slots. So those slots are added hourly. I do it every day. I have a reg of an old car that I stick in and I check. And I can tell you, when I refresh the screen, I will see it moving from July to tomorrow to June. It
The
continuously.
figures are kind of off then with this.
They're not.
skewed,
The figure we give is an average. So it's 14 days is what we have at the moment. But I can't share this. As of Monday, it actually dropped down to 12 days. So we've been hitting that 12-day mark over the last.
Thank you,
and it really helps.
Senator